Alrighty. Hello, hello. My name is Seth, and I see you are Plat 3, Plat 2, mostly Genji. Just looking to climb, work on maybe positioning and trying to maybe adapt in a tough game where you feel like you're not really able to perform. Now this is Gibraltar. This is a good map for Genji. I wish I could see bans in the replay, because bans are actually quite important, especially on a map like this. You usually see a lot of Winstons, which can be kind of hard to play around as Genji. But we're seeing a double ram, which is interesting. But good for us. We gotta be careful. Good for us because we like to go around the tank, right? So one of the reasons why Winston's kind of a problem for us as Genji is because he can match our speed, right? Like he can chase us. And obviously we can't deflect his damage, right? We have no way to mitigate his ability to damage us. But with something like Ram, he can't really do much to stop us from doing what we want to do, except from just like sitting where we would want to go and dive. But in this instance, like we don't have like a dive comp running to try and like fully dive them if they're like stacking on a certain area. So that means we're generally going to be able to actually take some more space. Because if the Ram is like staying back with his team, especially on high ground and stuff, then that means he's not contesting the payload. So we can kind of just keep pushing. So that's pretty good for us. They also have Pocket Echo. So we kind of want to look at who they have and see who we want to be targeting. Who's going to be the easiest person for us to kill. So I would probably be trying to maybe duel that soldier, or going for the Juno, to force the Mercy to peel off of the Echo. So that way the Echo gets less value, the Mercy also gets less value, because the Mercy is always a trade-off. The only reason why Mercy gets value is so that she can damage boost one of the DPS, right? So if you force her off that DPS and force her to heal or move away from them, then she's significantly reduced in value. Because if she's stuck healing everybody, then there's 14 other supports you could pick and, you know, do better at that, right? And keep in mind, when you dive, okay, that's actually huge. For zero reason whatsoever, the Ram dropped. So now we can take this platform right here for free. Because, again, Ram dropped to try to check us, but he can't retake that high ground, right? That's the great thing about high ground is it's hard to take, right? It's hard to get to it. That's why mobility is so strong. It's because you can take it and give it, you know, at will, right? So just forcing him off high ground there allows you to now maybe, instead of trying to fight like this, you could go back up to the bridge where no one is here to contest you anymore and take this bridge flank. And then use this as a way to maybe get a free kill on that Juno, maybe chain into the soldier, something like that, right? Which will take a lot of pressure off your Ram, as other people might have to turn around. So it's important to know, especially in a game where you feel like you can't really do a whole lot kills-wise, which can definitely be the case in a comp like this, I could see, especially if you don't have like a dive comp. Really all you have working with you is an Ana, and you're playing for that Nano Blade, which they might also end up just nanoing Ram, I don't know. Especially I know in metal ranks especially, Anas don't tend to trust Genjis to do much with Nano Blade, so they just nano the tank. Or all they do is just like tunnel vision on just pocketing the tank, so then they just throw their ult away on the tank regardless, even though Nano Blade's a really good ultimate, right? Or a ult combo. So we really should be looking, instead of trying to get kills per se, trying to distract, right? Going in with one cooldown and then leaving with the other, right? Now with Genji and his ability to get a dash reset on a kill, right, allows you so that if you get the kill, if you greed and use both cooldowns to get the kill, then you now get another cooldown you can use to get out, right? Because with Genji, every time you're engaging, you're either engaging with your dash and then disengaging with your deflect, or engaging with your deflect and disengaging with your dash most of the time, right? The only time you ever want to commit to is if you know that you're going to get that dash reset, right? By committing dash and deflect, you are basically gambling on your ability to get that kill. You know, you're taking the escape tool and you're diverting it into your ability to get a kill knowing that if you get that kill, then you now have another cooldown you can use to get out, right? So it's really, really important. Even if you're trying to get kills in a comp where you can actually get kills, that you don't get too greedy, because as you get higher, it's really, really easy to get punished for burning both cooldowns on Genji, right? And that's one of the really tricky things about Genji, especially if you're like starting in especially like in gold, for example, right? Gold, Genji is super, super strong, right? Because he's so hard to punish. No matter how bad you are with cooldowns, how bad your mechanics might be, just being able to double jump around and being a semi-small hitbox, it's so annoying to fight a Genji. But as you get up to plat and then you're getting closer to diamond, right? You are going to get punished way harder for overusing those cooldowns. So especially in a comp like this where you might need to shift your focus away as a flanker from getting kills to securing attention from people, right? By pulling someone's focus away, you are effectively killing them for as long as you are keeping their attention on you, right? Because if you think about it, it's like, why is dying bad in Overwatch, right? It's like, it's an objective-based game. It's not like TDM where just getting the kill gives you the point, right? It's like, the reason why dying is one of the worst things you can do in Overwatch. Most people say the worst thing. I disagree. I think technically there's worse things you can do, but the reason why it's one of the worst things is because it takes you out of the fight, takes you away from the objective for generally the longest period of time, right? And that's why it's bad. It's because you're not there to contest the objective, right? Or to put value into the fight that is contesting the objective, if that makes sense. So by taking someone's attention away from the objective and set on you, you are effectively killing them for as long as you're doing that, right? And the more people you have looking at you, the less and less you are trying to kill people, right? The more people you have looking at you, the less you're going to be distracting them for, because you have more pressure going on you. You're going to be getting your cooldowns forced. You're not going to be able to stay in that little battle as long as if you were just in a 1v1, for example. So that's really where we should be kind of diverting our attention, is if someone's low or something, or isolated, we go for those kills. But finding the chain, the weak link in the chain, so to speak, and then taking a tug on that, and then everything else will follow, right? That mostly is Juno here. Again, because Mercy is on the Echo or the Soldier. And so Juno is essentially having to heal, solo heal Ram, right? So if you pull that attention away from Juno, especially because if Juno's looking at you, she can't heal Ram, right? Because whoever she's looking at is who she can heal. Other characters aren't necessarily the case, like Brig, for example. Brig is the opposite, right? By looking at you, she's healing as well, right? And that's why she's really good against divers, and flankers in general. So we should probably be trying to focus that Juno, even if she's really hard to kill, right? Even if you feel like you can't kill her, just making that always a possibility. Being that threat, making it really uncomfortable for that Juno to play the game, forcing that Mercy off, whoever she wants to pocket. Will also make it a lot easier for your cast to kill the Echo, right? Because if cast is having to basically 1v2 the pocketed Echo the whole game, he's going to have a kind of a tough time, right? Especially, you know, in Platinum, you can't really expect your randoms to hit shots like that to be able to take those duels, right? So by taking this Juno away, right, and threatening this Juno, the Mercy has to peel away, right? And then now by doing that, you've made your cast's life easier, because now he's able to fight that Echo a lot easier, right? Which means he's able to pressure the DPS off a lot easier, which means your Ram also is under less pressure, which means your supports are under less pressure, right? So like all of these things are like a cascading effect from you taking the attention away from Juno, right? And obviously the degree of which this is true is based on how much you do it, right? How much you take her away. And that's why, you know, focusing the supports is what you should be doing, right? Instead of just farming damage off the tank the whole time, by killing the supports, you fold the team from inside, right? Because if they don't have that backbone to stand on, then they fall, you know? That's good cleanup. I like this. Keep in mind, some people don't actually respawn in the old thing. See, like Ram here, for example, a lot of people still don't know about the spawn system. so that if you respawn in the in the early spawn and then it gets captured, you can teleport to the old spawn. A lot of people don't actually do that, especially on Gibraltar for some reason. So always be on the lookout for some people below you here that maybe didn't do that, and you can kill them twice. Nice. Decent disengagement. Not getting too greedy. All right, so here is the first kind of example with the cooldowns, right? And knowing which cooldown you should use to engage and disengage, right? That's also important. It's not just, oh, I can dash in and deflect out, or oh, I can just deflect in and dash out in every situation, right? You have to know which one is right for any given situation. Knowing Echo can beam through your deflect, and knowing that if you're disengaging with deflect, you might be kind of low, then she's going to be able to counter that disengagement, right? Same thing as when you're engaging, she's going to throw a bunch of stickies at you. It's better to engage with deflect here because you also don't need to close that much distance. So you can actually just close the distance with deflect here and then use a deflect to kill her, probably. In worst case scenario, whatever, you can dash out and she can't chase you, right? But you're crouching a little bit too much on the deflect as kind of a shield almost. Not actually paying attention to who you're diving and how they interact with your abilities. And I think that just comes from also just like not really having an escape plan. When you're engaging anybody in any kind of fight, we should be, I don't know why we're AFK here, but you should always have some kind of, you should know where you're gonna go. You should know generally where am I going to leave if things go awry, and how am I going to leave? You know, how am I going to get there, right? Okay. You're down your Cass. Okay, this is fine. They're just ulting in your spawn, so that's just kind of a wasted duplicate. No worries. Any ults you can force out, the better, because that's one less ult they have to fight your ults, right? So it's like, we take those. So we're looking to Nanoblade here, and then probably secure the point with Ram ult. But realistically, is that going to happen? Meh. Ultimately, is the first time someone presses Q, everyone also presses Q. You know, that's also very likely. Okay, this is good. Trying to... You see that isolated soldier flanking the backline, you try to check him. See, and then there you use deflect to disengage. You could also just leave into this small room here and get the mini, right? So instead of like using, like burning your dash to get out here, especially when dash isn't super far, you can just, as you're backing up deflect, you can just go right here, right? And, you know, obviously you're bumping into stuff, and as you get more comfortable, you're going to be a little bit more aware. I still have trouble with it, honestly. There's a lot of just random crap on a bunch of different maps that just make it impossible to just feel your way through without looking. But you can just like deflect and then walk in here and then kind of chill, and then maybe try again on the soldier, or go for something up here or something, right? But you do have to be careful that if you try to go for a nanoblade or something like that, but you leave soldier here with visor, he might be able to just, while you're going in with nanoblade, visor your backline and then kind of sweep the rug from under you. So you got to be careful, because it is kind of your job to check that soldier. Now, it's important to also note that maybe he's not worth chasing, right? Because as I said before, attention, if you're not fighting for the objective, then you're effectively dead, right? There's pretty much no difference as if you're not actually contributing to the objective, right? Same thing as like if you're damaging someone, as long as you get the kill, then sure. But if you don't get the kill, all of the damage that you did is in their favor, right? Same thing with like the tank, right? The tank, you know, the whole game as tank is basically trying to take as much damage as physically possible without passing the threshold of dying. Because as soon as you die, it's all that damage was worth it, because then you died and you lose the fight for it, right? But if you never actually end up dying, then all of that damage is wasted. So, as I was saying before, it might not be worth chasing the soldier for, because again, if you're fighting him, you're not here ulting and stuff. But the threat that he might pose might be enough to the objective that he's worth going for first, and then going in. Careful, we don't have any cooldowns. Yeah. Okay, well, we didn't invest any ults at least, so that's another ult gone. That virus there was a waste again, because you were down 2. So this is actually okay. So now we need to get that soldier out. Early. Preferably. Never mind. Okay, so now that they've used 2 ults, now we need to actually start ulting. We need to start engaging, make something happen here. Ignore that soldier and just go for the Mercy, the Juno, whatever. The Ram if you have to. Okay, now we're ulting. I'd blade that. I mean, I know we have a nano blade, sure, but like this is actually pretty winnable. Because we have our Ram ulting, and then that Juno's 1 HP. You dash up to her with because when you blade, you get dash reset, right? So you blade, get the dash reset, boom, Juno's dead, Echo's immediately dead, then you fall up to that Mercy, and then yeah, your Ana's dead, but you've won the fight off that. And then you have Juno and Nano. You can just Nano Ram in general. You don't have to Nano Ram ult per se, but then you have Nano Ram plus Juno ult on top of that to secure the last fight on the actual checkpoint. That was good. Oh. Yeah. So even though the Juno died, you could have won the fight there, but then you didn't. You might be able to trickle your way into winning this fight. Maybe not. Never mind. But the more you sloppily win fights, per se, right, the harder it will be to attack, right? Because the defender's job isn't even necessarily to kill you, right? Their job is to keep you from pushing the cart for as long as possible. So if you don't kill them in a clean sweeps, right, and just where they all respawn together, if you keep letting them trickle in, it's going to be impossible to really be able to push that cart at all. Especially if you're doing it so far up to your spawn, right? Like, see how far up they're pushing from the cart? Like, instead of, like, defending from up here, right? From, like, back here, and then you guys walk up here, like, they're way up here. So if they die here, like, you're not even fighting for the objective right now. Once you kill them, then you can start pushing the objective. And then as they start walking up, then you're going to have to fight again, right? So they're making you fight for something before you even get to fight for the objective, right? So if you don't kill them in a clean sweep, they will keep trickling in, and it will just take so much more time. You might eventually get it, but especially as you get right to that last little bit on the checkpoint, as the spawn's right there, it's so easy for them to stall, and all they need is like one big ultimate, right? Like maybe they duplicate the Ram, or Ram gets ult or whatever, right? Juno ult, things like that. Like that's all it takes to be able to clean sweep you guys to then reset and then do it all over again, right? And that's why it's really important to kill them as cleanly as possible when you're on attack. And the opposite is true on defense, right? If you're on defense, you want them to be trickling in, because as they trickle in, they're not actually really taking fights. So if people are staggering each other, right, it just takes longer and longer to actually get an actual team fight where the attacking team actually has a chance of winning. Which is where it's really easy to just to lose so much time just walking out of spawn, dying, walking out of spawn, dying, walking out of spawn, dying when you're on attack, because people can't take that extra just 10 seconds or whatever to just group up and then take an actual like fight together with ults, and you know it's just, you guys are just walking into the fight without actual cohesion as a presence as a team. Because even though you are Genji and you are a flanker and somewhat independent, there is no such thing as an independent character. Even Tracer is not an independent character. She still depends on her team to just exist for her job to work, right? Because whether you're going for kills or you're just going for attention, everyone's always looking at the biggest threat. But if you're the only threat, then you're always the biggest threat. So no one loses anything from looking at you, right? The whole point is like you're giving them a dilemma. By fighting you, right, they're taking their attention away from the actual objective, right? But if they don't respect you and they just keep fighting for the objective, then you can punish them as well by flanking them, right? By killing them and catching them off guard. So it's kind of a catch-22. That's your job as a flanker, is to give them that dilemma, force them to be uncomfortable, force them to make mistakes, right? Like an Ana, for example, if you dive an Ana, force a nade out, right? And this is why, like, even in like high elo, this is still really strong, is because you'd think it's almost the other way around, where it's like, the higher elo you get, the worse flanking is, because the less mistakes people make, so people will just ignore you, yada yada, whatever. But it's actually the opposite, because people make mistakes more and more the farther down you are, right? But by flanking, by getting attention, by being a threat, you are forcing people to make decisions and make mistakes that they normally wouldn't make, right? Even if they're not mistakes, right? Like if Ana has to nade herself to keep her alive from you, that's not a mistake, right? But you've effectively done the same thing as an Ana whiffing her nade, right? Or wasting it for no reason, things like that, right? You're forcing these players to make these decisions and punishing them for it regardless, no matter which choice they make, right? But if you're the only one there, then she doesn't have to nade, because she has 4 other people that can pressure you off before you get a chance to actually be a threat. So whatever you're doing, you're always doing it with your team. Even if you're not physically with your team, you're always syncing everything you do up with your team, right? You're always doing it with your team some way or another, right? It doesn't matter who you are as a character or as your role. You are never, ever, ever alone when you're doing something, or should never be. Because Genji thrives in that chaos, especially because the more threats there are on the field, and the more presence that your team is making, the more uncomfortable you make the people that you are fighting, right? And the more punishing you are for just being a threat, right? Because think about it, like again with the Ana example, okay, we're getting bladed, that's good. If you force the Ana nade out, but then it's just you, it's like, by the time your team gets back, the nade's gonna be back and you're not gonna be there. So what difference does it make, right? But if you're doing it while your team is pushing, then guess what? Now she doesn't have nade, now you're there, plus your team's there to capitalize on the lack of nade, right? Now they can go on the tank maybe. You know, now they can walk up and the Ana can't heal herself, things like that. So that's why you always really want to make sure you're with your team when you're doing something. Even if you're not actually with your team physically. Nice. We could kill him. Well. That's tough. Okay, we're engaging with no cooldowns and very low health, which we're also getting away with, by the way, because our RAM is such a threat, right? Like here, we have no cooldowns and we're 88 HP going in, right? Okay, sorry about that. My power literally just went out. So let's see, where were we? Okay, yes, so you went in without cooldowns, right? And then also really low health, right? Because everything's a resource, right? You should consider like your health and your cooldowns all as one pool of resources, right? And your mobility on top of that, right? All of those things are huge when it comes to what you can and can't do, right? So it's important to know, even if you have both cooldowns, that if you're 1 HP, then that doesn't necessarily mean you can engage still, right? Like you're missing that resource, right? Same thing as if you're full HP, but you have no cooldowns, still can't really engage, right? So it's important to note that like really low HP, missing 1 cooldown, it's really scary, unless you're like going for a kill here. If you can guarantee that that dash results in a kill, then, you know, there's an argument to be made. But if you can't get that kill, then it's not necessarily worth going for if it gets you killed instead, right? Because instead of trying to get the Mercy killed, you're getting yourself killed instead, right? Which is not a great trade, especially if you don't kill her. But the reason why you didn't die there, the reason why you got away with it, right, is as I was talking about earlier, since you're doing it with your team, with your Ram ulting, right, and your Ana there, right, like pretty much your tank. When I say your team, I mostly mean your tank. If your tank's going in, because he's always going to be the biggest threat when he's engaging, right? And by flanking and becoming the biggest threat, because like I said, everyone's always going to give the biggest attention, or the most attention to the biggest threat to them, right? So if you engage and get their attention by becoming the biggest threat, right? By again giving them the dilemma of like, oh, I got to deal with this Genji, otherwise I'm going to die, which is what you're hoping for. Because I mean, obviously, if they don't, then you can just kill them, right, for free. But 99% of the time, they're going to give you the attention and try to kill you, right? The reason why we do that is because if we're now the biggest threat, then our RAM can walk in much easier, right? Same thing as if the RAM is the biggest threat, it allows us to go in, right, and actually get kills, right? So as a flanker, no matter who you're flanking on, really, it's the same thing, just different in how you go about doing it, right? It's pretty much just you and your tank, right? The other people don't really matter too much. The main thing is you are kind of trading with your tank back and forth, being the biggest threat, and whoever is the biggest threat is allowing the other person to get kills, right? So if you're the biggest threat, then you're going for attention. You're trying to stall, get attention, so your RAM can walk in and get kills, take space, right? If your RAM is walking in, whatever, becoming the biggest threat, then his job is to stall and allow you to use him as a distraction for you to go and get kills. So it's important to know which one you are trying to go for at any given time. You're not just trying to go for kills every time. And you'd be surprised how much of a difference you being the one that has attention versus your tank being the one that has the attention, how much of a difference that can make between how easy it is to kill someone, right? So by going for something like this, which is kind of a suicide play in most scenarios, is actually super viable, or not super viable, but you get away with it, I should say, because your RAM is such a big threat that even you diving in, and even though you're 1 HP and easy to kill, your RAM is just taking so much attention, so much focus. There's no one has the attention to deal with you, right? Because you have to look at the person to hit them, right, and to kill them, right? But if you're looking at this the whole time, then the Genji can be 1 HP, he can be 1,000 HP, it's not going to matter, right? Because you're not shooting him regardless. So you can get away with that. Now imagine, instead of going for a play like that where you can't get the kill, going for a play where you actually can like try and get the kill, right? Imagine waiting a little bit, get some healing, then going for a kill, wait for someone to maybe be low, and just that's where you thrive in the chaos, is by capitalizing on the fact that they aren't paying attention to you, by getting kills, being really punishing, and by being that threatening, by being that much of a threat, because you've established that as a pattern that's going to happen. If you don't respect me and you respect my RAM too much, I'm going to kill you. They are going to respect you more and more and more, right? And then it gets to a point where just by existing, by just being alive, even if you're not fighting them, you are making them have to be more aware, making them have to split half their mind, just making sure that you're not about to dive them. So that's why people hate Sombra, right, so much. It's like, yeah, the hack is annoying, but also just never knowing if she's right on top of you, so you always have to kind of keep half an eye open for whether or not she's going to dive you. Otherwise, because if you're caught too off guard, you're dead, right? So, like I said, no matter which flank you're playing, you're doing the same thing. You're just going about it differently, right? And the strengths that you have are different, right? So with Sombra, she's not as much about getting kills as she is more on the attention side, right? So she's more about being the biggest threat, allowing her RAM to walk in, versus maybe a Reaper who's less about the attention and more about the short window of impact and getting kills, right? So if you're playing Reaper instead, you're going more for allowing, like hiding, allowing your RAM to be a really big threat. And it could be anything. I'm just using RAM as an example because that's, what we have right now. And then going in when he's the biggest threat and getting those kills. And then by getting even just one of those kills and then walking up, and even if you're the biggest threat, as your RAM's coming in and as you've got a kill, you're sandwiching, you're surprising them, they're going to die, right? And then you win the fight off that, right? Every flanker's like this. It's just they fall somewhere differently on the spectrum of going more for kills and going more for attention. And the more mobility you have, the more versatility you have, right? Genji and Tracer especially are right there in that middle zone almost, where you can go either way depending on the situation, which is what makes them really good. Because if your RAM isn't able to walk up as much, you have the mobility to try and become the biggest threat. Where on maybe Reaper, you can't really do that too much because you're going to get forced out so quickly, so easily, and you're not going to be able to do any damage kind of thing. And the reverse is true, right? And Tracer especially. Tracer is the pinnacle of flankers and the versatility in the fact that she can... Winning a fight and losing a fight isn't about killing or dying, right? You can lose a fight by backing up and giving them space, right? A great example of this is like here, right? Like as the defenders were fighting here, forcing you to fight for space that is kind of already yours, right? Like you're having to fight for something that's not the objective, right? You're having to fight for this, so that way you can start fighting for this, right? So as a defender, they're making you fight more times than if they had just defended back here where the cart is, for example, right? But this backfires if they die here, because they have to remember they're also not fighting for the objective, so it's not worth dying over, right? So instead of standing here and trying to hold this space as much as possible and then dying here and then allowing them to walk up and just push the cart, you still get more time for it, but it's still not as valuable as if you hold here and then if you know you can't hold this space anymore without dying, then backing up and giving space. Because you can afford to back up because you took extra space early, so that the whole reason of doing that is that you can back up more. So you have more room to back up. Because if you're here and you're in the same position, you can't really back up that easily. Like you can go a couple steps back and then there's nowhere else to back up to. You know what I mean? And the objective is here. So it's the same thing as I said with the kind of the tank, right? The tank's job is to just take as much damage as possible without dying, right? It's kind of a gamble of how close you can get to dying without dying, right? Same thing is here. It's like, how much can we get away with sitting here without actually dying? Because as soon as we die, as soon as we lose by dying here, it backfires, and it's all worth it for the attacking team, right? So keep that in mind when you're going for an engagement. Is where's my tank? What is my tank doing, right? And that will better inform how to take an engagement. Even if you're going to take the same engagement regardless, knowing what kind of attention your tank is getting and where your tank is can inform when you should take it. Because if your tank's not really there yet, you're like, okay, maybe I should wait a bit. But if your tank's like going in, it's like, okay, I need to go in, right? Okay, that's a terrible ram ult, so we take those. Nice, good pick. Mechanics are good too, like, especially as you put yourself in more advantageous engagements, right? As you get better at learning which engagements you should take and how you should take them, the easier it is to secure these picks, right? The less mechanics you need. I always say, aim bails out poor positioning, right? The worse your positioning is, the better aim you need to have to make that position work. But if you have better positioning, you can have worse aim, right? But if you have good aim, but then you have the positioning to back it up, you can do even more things, right? Because the difference between a good player and a great player is not the fact that the great player can hit more shots, you know, or hit harder shots. The great player is always looking to make the shot as easy as possible before they even go for it, right? And the shot can be hitting an actual shot, or it can be an engagement, right? It's about taking as many steps as possible to make it as easy as possible. And that is the key to consistency, right? Is setting yourself up for success. Because if you're just jumping right into the pool, you know what I mean? And you're forcing yourself to adapt in a lot of ways. And that makes it 10 times harder on yourself to actually consistently perform in any given way. But if you have these setups and you do these things beforehand, you are giving yourself kind of a head start, right? Which is necessary the more you climb as well, because the better you get, the higher you get, the better they get as well, which diminishes your head start even more. So the less you focus on these things, and the less the more you focus on things like mechanics and stuff, the more you're just going to get punished more and more. What is that ult? Good kill. Watch the res though. Oh. Okay, where's our healing? That was a good kill. Honestly, like, I don't hate that you go, like, you disengage here. You're not trying to get greedy. That's good. But with that mercy there, and was she low? Yeah, she was not low per se, but she was missing health, I would have actually just tried to kill that Mercy. Oh my gosh, this is third person. Just because even if you die, like, also remember, defenders have, like, not each person, not everyone is equal. Let's put it that way. Defenders are worth more than attackers because the defenders have an advantage of time and the map advantage. And especially the more you get along the map, it's the more that advantage starts to stack up. And then eventually, once you get to the very end, it starts to flip because the spawn advantage starts to flip because the defenders get closer and closer to their spawn, right? So trading, like, or getting that ult out in general is already really good. So even if you trade and just die after killing the soldier, you still got an ult out for it. That's still really good. Even if you don't necessarily win the fight right here, but you're setting yourselves up to win the next fight, right? But you got your dash reset, right? And we're not actually under any threat here, if you look. Like, there's really no one that's here that's going to punish us, right? Like, the Ram's walking in. If we dash out, and obviously we didn't get healed because we were over the Juno's head and she's not paying attention, right? So then Echo just kills you. So in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, obviously you don't dash, blah, 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 whatever, right? I don't hate that you went for that. But in this situation, we can actually get a little greedy. And this just can come from more awareness and, again, realizing what is threatening us right now, right? What makes any given position safe and dangerous? You know, it's like, yeah, there are two people on us, but are we actually in danger here? Not really. Especially if you keep that dash up. Because if you keep the dash up, then once you become in danger, obviously you're fairly low, so you have less time to react if you become instantly, like, in danger, right? But you can fight this Mercy and at least stall the res, as, again, your Ram is walking up into... So he's the biggest threat to this Ram right now, so Ram's not going to just, like, oh, what's this over here? And then start gunning you down, you know what I mean? And then Juno can't see you, Echo's behind there, right? Like, you're really only here with the Mercy, and then Mercies are Mercies, right? Especially if she gets greedy and tries to go for the res without even checking to see if you've disengaged. That's a free kill, and you get a double kill, plus you got the soldier ult out, right? And then you can just kind of chill here and wait. And then if Ram turns around, then you can dash in here instead, where you're a little bit safer, or whatever. Or die, even, if you really must. But especially dying here on top of that, but if that Mercy reses the soldier, it's like, you've still got attack visor out, which is still really good. But, and there's that res. So now you've traded your life for an ultimate, which, like I said, isn't terrible. But that's also only because he ulted. But if he didn't ult there, right, if he just didn't press Q there, because it was a terrible ult, this is ultimately a really negative trade for you. Also, if they're spawn camping you here, I don't know if you know about this. Not a lot of people do because you don't tend to need it very often. But there is a second door up here you can use to get another angle on someone like this, right? So if Echo doesn't know you're up here, that's a free kill, right? Or you hear that soldier and you're like, oh, there's a soldier up here, and then you fight the soldier, keep him off this height instead, you know? So keep that in mind if people are, like, wide holding your spawn, right? Instead of just holding here, trying to hold your spawn, if they're, like, actually entering inside here, you can punish them through this door. And obviously you have not only spawn, but a mega right here as well to disengage. Or you can disengage it to here if soldier's not here or whatever, and take this mini. Again, just another way to flank. Okay, so keep in mind we've burned our dash to engage, which you generally don't want to do if you're at the very least not going to hit them with dash. Same thing is if you're going to disengage with dash, the great thing that engaging with deflect allows you is not only do you get to do some possible damage while you're engaging, right? Which again, if you set up properly, then you can give yourself the ability to engage with something like deflect in more scenarios where here it's like, obviously it's like, you can't really engage from deflect from down here, right? It's like, it's kind of hard. So instead of burning dash to get up here, it's like, he's not going anywhere. Just like walk over here, wall climb up here, right? And then maybe wall climb up this and then double jump or whatever, or walk under here, whatever, right? get up here, and then now you can engage with deflect. And then now you're doing some damage, right click, whatever, and you're going for the kill here. And then as he's low, you can disengage with dash and get the dash reset kill. And worst case scenario, if he's like 1 HP, you can turn around and hit a quick shuriken on him, or whatever, to finish him off if you didn't quite actually like nail that kill. That's why like it's so hard to fight the soldier. Like, it feels like the soldier's impossible to kill, is because you burned your resource just getting to him, not even damaging, not even participating. Because even if you were like, he's there and you're up here and you engage with dash, you know, dash, right click, whatever, it's like you've engaged him with dash, but yeah, you're using it to close distance, but you've used it to fight him as well, right? That's the great thing, is they're both multi-purpose, right? So the more you can use your abilities to engage and disengage whilst also fighting them, right? Rather than just doing one or the other, where instead of just deflecting in their face and then just dashing out, right? It's like if you're on top of him here, because you use your mobility resource instead to get up to him or whatever, right? And then you maybe like you're over here, right? And you're deflecting, boom, boom, boom. He's somewhat low. Then you right click dash out to kill him, right? So you're disengaging at the same time as you're using those abilities to fight him, right? It increases your efficiency so much more, because then you're not forced to use just your shurikens to fight him, right? Like you need your abilities to fight him. So remember to really try to utilize that the wall climb and double jumps to get up the height. And if you can't use your dash to hit them when you're engaging, then you should probably try to set up to a better position to where you can. Because if you're engaging them, like I said before, like with dash without hitting them, then a lot of the times you're not going to end up killing them. And again, you would need way, way better mechanics to make up for that lack of damage that you're doing. And again, just even the pressure being applied to the soldier by dashing into him and damaging him, right? It's going to make him more flustered and more uncomfortable, make it harder for him to hit you, make it harder for him to pressure you out, right? And force those cooldowns out of yours early. But since you burned that one dash out early to get to him without even hitting him while he was back here, he felt way less pressure because you only had one cooldown left and he was full HP with his cooldowns. And then you notice how impossible it was to kill him with just your shurikens. And then he forced you to deflect out. It's like, you're not a threat at all. As soon as you dash up here, you're not a threat, right? You're just a distraction. But you also can't, with being a distraction, right, as well, it's like, that's not a good thing in this case for you, because he's also a distraction. The reason why he's up here is to distract you, is because if you're fighting him up here, you're not fighting him over here. You know what I mean? With the cart. So he's pulling you away from the objective. So you can't distract at a distraction. You know what I mean? You're not getting value from that. Because you're the one on the clock here. He's just trying to stall you out. And again, the more you fight over here, even if you do kill him, right? You're still so far away from the cart here that it's going to be a lot easier for him to get back and then participate in the fight in a more typical way, you know. But again, you can't afford to just leave him up there either at the same time. You know what I mean? Once he kills your Juno. Well, we have Nano Blade, so it's not all lost. And there's a Winston. So Winston wasn't banned. Ignore him, ignore him. Remember, you're not killing him here. So all the damage you're doing to him is in his favor. Because if you're not killing him with that damage, ultimately, then the damage is wasted. Because if you're putting that damage elsewhere to his squishies, then you're a much bigger threat. Good kill. But see how you engaged by hitting her with the dash, right? Like you're engaging with your shurikens, using your mobility to pressure out. You force that cooldown out even. And then you, bam, you hit her with the dash. And you're on top of her. So much easier to kill her, right? I mean, obviously she was 1 HP by the time you dashed. But it's so much harder because you're pressuring her out, right? You're using your resources, which again, your shurikens are also a resource, and her also poor positioning. She's in a much harder position to fight you than, say, the soldier was when you engaged him earlier. So this is what I was talking about earlier as well. It's like, notice how hard it's going to be to actually, like, you're winning these fights technically, but since you're on the clock and you have to push, and there's spawns right there, by not winning it cleanly, you're making your job so much harder. Like, it's so hard to fight. So now they get ults up. Now it's like they can actually just retake a lot quicker, because they also, again, they don't need to necessarily completely beat you, right? They just need one pick even, right? Force an ult out, get one pick, because one pick is a permanent death, basically, for this fight. If you die here, you're not going to participate for the rest of the round, right? And then somehow your team stalls it out also. But again, you're eventually going to slow trickle into losing it anyway, because their spawns are closer. So for every 2 that you kill on defense, they need to kill 1 on offense, right? Or like every 2 of the defenders that you kill, the defenders only need to kill 1 of you on offense in this position, right? When their spawn is this close. Do we see 9? We see 9. That's unlucky. That's not your fault, but that is very unlucky. It would have been nice that if we were on Winston sooner, like to start on Winston. Because then we can again, with those high grounds, we can access them much easier, or much more easily. And if our tank is doing that, you know, if he can access them as well, then we can dive together, right? Again, you're doing it together, because when Winston dives in, you're allowing him to take all the attention, and then you come up and just clean them up, right? Because they can't afford to look at you because there's a big monkey in their face, right? Okay, we're AFK, which is really bad. Okay, we should be looking to play on bridge here, especially if they're not running a dive tank either. Then we can take advantage of that, because we're not going to be checked nearly as easily by just because there's a lot less people that can check us up here. Because also, if you're up here, right, and they're not checking you, like if soldier's here, like, then bang, you can fight the soldier, right? But he's not there, like, or if he's not there, right, and they're pushing up this high ground, and you're back here, let's say maybe there's an Ana down here, right, or a Mercy, you can take that, like that duel, right? Or pull attention away if there's a couple people here, right? Not go for the kills necessarily, but like, oh, boom, 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 I'm fighting, I'm a threat, and then wall climb back up or dash up or whatever you need to do, right? As their tank's trying to run in, right? Or over here trying to run in. And then, meanwhile, the tank thinks that his team's with him, right? Because they were coming, but you've stalled them, and the tank hasn't paid attention to that. So he's now off sync with his team. Even if you don't necessarily kill his backline, you're taking them out of the fight and essentially killing them long enough that the tank might, you know, hopefully long enough that the tank gets so desynced from his team that he then dies, right? Because the same thing as I said earlier, where everything you're doing with your team, aka the tank, that's for every character, right? And that goes for the enemy too, and the enemy tank. The tank also needs to do that with his team, right? It goes both ways. Because if the tank is going in alone, then he's feeding, right? You see a Reinhardt just charging in, just dying, feeding. Instead of getting mad at him and flaming him, just do it with him, right? Utilize the attention that he's grabbing to get kills, right? And you know, it's kind of a saying of like, it's not feeding if you all do it. You know what I mean? That's just an aggressive play. So if you're taking some of these resources away from him, right? By stalling them, and even if you're not killing them, if you kill them, then great. But you know, because killing them allows you to move on to another person and stall them, right? And if you kill them, then you can move on and stall the next person, kind of thing. But you don't necessarily have to kill them to get the value you need. Because then also if you're on her, then maybe Soldier now has to come peel and shoot, or Mercy has to come peel, and now Ram's getting absolutely nothing, and then your Ram, or like, this Ram is in a 1v4, right? So like that's what I'm saying is like winning. Here it's like in that situation you're in a 1v3, but as long as you don't die, especially if the Ram dies for it, you've won a 1v3, even though you didn't necessarily kill any 3 of them, any one of the 3 rather. So when we're on defense, especially because our life is more valuable on defense than it is on attack, we need to be a little bit more passive, so to speak. A little more passive, not in the sense of positioning per se, but in the types of engagements we take, right? So instead of trying to get the kills and trying to whatever, it's like your job as a defender, you don't need to kill the enemy, right? The only reason why as a defender you're killing the enemy is because if they're not there to fight for the objective because they're dead, then it's easier to stall them. But sometimes, again, if you give up your life for that, then it's now everything that you've done before that is now worthless. It's flipped on its head, right? So by stalling them, by going for easier engagements where you're not trying to kill them, you're just stalling them. What is happening to my computer? Okay, whatever. You're taking them out of the fight. You're effectively doing the same thing as killing them, maybe for a shorter period of time, but long enough where you can take a bigger key player out, right? And that's going to help your team a lot. And it's kind of a thankless job, right? Flanking without killing everybody is a very, very unseen job. If you do your job right as a flanker, where if you're not getting all the kills and you're being the biggest threat and you're focused on getting attention so your tank can walk up, your tank is going to get the biggest EO ever, right? And you may not have all the stats, but you will be single-handedly winning the game. Because if you think about it, no DPS can really play the game, especially in like 5v5, if the tank can't play the game. If the tank can't play the game, then you don't get to play the game. So you might as well do everything you can to make your tank be able to play the game as much as possible, right? You know, with the kind of joke of 5v5 being like, you know, 2 kaijus, and it's just like trying to get your kaiju to win, right? You know, especially with the Mauga meta, where, you know, the supports were stuck just sitting there babysitting the Mauga the whole time, and just trying to babysit your Mauga better than they babysit their Mauga. It's like, it's very often overlooked that it's also the same as the DPS. Your job as a DPS is to not take those resources from your team, to not be a burden for your supports, because every resource that you require and you take away from your supports, your tank is no longer getting, which can give their tank the leg up over your tank. And if your tank dies, then you will eventually also die. But if you die, you don't necessarily lose like the fight, right? So it's important to simultaneously not be a burden on your team, and take resources away, but also try to take as many resources away from your opponent. And that's where not necessarily going into an engagement with the intent of killing someone really comes into play, right? A good flanker is ultimately a bad 6th teammate for the enemy team, right? A really good tracer is ultimately doing the same thing as a really bad teammate for the team that she's playing against, because she's not getting any resources. She's not taking any resources from her team, but she's also forcing all of her supports cooldowns out, or all of the enemy supports cooldowns out, rather, as if there was just an absolute sandbag of a 6th player, just forcing all these cooldowns out, away from the tank, away from the fight. And that's your role, right? It's just about how and what is the best way to achieve that goal. That is what you should be thinking about. Like I said, sometimes it's killing, sometimes it's just getting attention. It's okay. Again, you need to remember who you're fighting here. So you remember, your deflect is not going to help you in this fight against this Echo, right? You need to be ready. If she barrel stuffs you, if you're full HP, then you should be aware that she's not going to beam you, right? Because her beam's going to do nothing. So in this situation where you see that she looks at you and she hasn't actually really fought you yet, you should be anticipating, especially from the way you died to her earlier, that she's just going to immediately right-click you, right? And that's when you pop with deflect, to deflect them all back into her, and then go for a right-click dash and she's dead. But in general, even if she doesn't stick you, whatever, if you're trying to disengage, you cannot disengage with deflect against Echo. You cannot. Because she's going to be able to chase you, because she's fast enough to keep up with your movement speed, but also her beam can pierce your deflect. So you need to dash out to try to close the distance to increase the distance between you two far enough to get out of her beam range, and far enough to where she can't chase you immediately with her flight. So you got to remember what the ultimate, the biggest threat of what your opponents can do against you, right? Whoever you're fighting, what is the key cooldown you are thinking about, that you're worried about, right? Like with Ana, is it, you know, Sleep Dart? Is it Nade? With Soldier, Helix Rocket, right? It's about, you know, with your deflect, you're playing around the Helix Rocket. again, with Echo, it's not necessarily the beam, it's actually the stickies, right? Because the beam doesn't mean anything unless you're low. And the best way for her to get you low is with the stickies. So if you can force those stickies out, it's kind of like same thing as earlier here, where you burned your dash just to get to the soldier, to the soldier. So you didn't have it to fight him anymore. So you were down a cooldown and down a really important cooldown for fighting someone. So you were basically not a threat to him. Same thing with her stickies. If you deflect her stickies, not only back into her as well, right, but just in general, or force her to whiff them, whatever, if she doesn't have them, then it's going to be significantly harder for her to kill you, and you become even more of a threat. Because also, if you are on the, if you're in the advantage and she's trying to flee, you can chase her with your dash, right? And her beam, again, also becomes useless. If you make her stickies useless, you then make her beam useless, right? But if you make her stickies useful, then you make her beam useful. So instead of focusing on necessarily the beam, you should focus on the cooldown that makes the beam work. But still keep in mind that you shouldn't use Deflect as a disengagement tool for Echo, specifically. Honestly, the best is in that situation where if you don't have dash and you're trying to disengage from Echo, is to just try and use your shurikens to kill her, right? Use your other resource instead to try and out-kill her before she can kill you. Because otherwise you're going to be dead anyway. You're not going to be able to do any damage, and you're also not blocking any damage. So all you're basically doing the same thing as just standing there letting her kill you if you're deflecting, right? Like that. So just the threat of you dashing forces him off. Right? See, you deflected the Helix, you're much less of a threat. Now he's got the Mercy, you know, he feels more powerful. The Mercy allows him to recover a bit from the so-called psychological damage, I guess, of no longer having his deflect, or having his Helix rocket because of your deflect. But then he lost the Mercy and he refought you as if that Mercy never existed, and you killed him easily, right? Now, obviously, you're going to die here, probably. That's unfortunate. Let's go back to that. So if we see Echo there, we could honestly try to wait our deflect out again, right? Because unironically, our deflect is really useful against Echo. Because again, if you can deny those stickies, you can deny the beam, right? Because again, even if you're low, even if you just try to dash out, she can still, especially if she has flight, she can still chase you wherever you go. So if you're low and dash out, she'll just fly to you and kill you anyway, right? Okay, we should be turning around deflecting there. Again, like disengaging with deflect, like you kind of got lucky that, I don't know how you didn't really die there. Like even with the healing, like there's no reason for you to turn around. And it's not like you're like at 0 ammo either, so there's no reason for you to necessarily reload. Like you should be turning around here. Even if literally everything they have shooting at you, it can pierce you, right? It's like there's no reason not to try it, at least the one thing that might be able to be deflected. Like Ram's Punch, for example. You can deflect those. Or block those more specifically. So the soldier is flanking a lot, so now we need to kind of make the conscious decision of, do we just need to hard focus this soldier and commit to killing him? Because either you need to completely ignore him and utilize the fact that he's not there to then focus his other teammates, right? Think about like maybe a flanking tank, right? Like a ball. It's like with a ball, again, the same thing with the tank philosophy of take as much damage as possible without dying, and if you die, it's not worth it now. It's like now it becomes worth it for the enemy to shoot you. You either need to commit to doing enough damage to kill him, or you need to commit to utilizing the fact that he's not there to protect his teammates and go for where his teammates aren't, right? Or where he's not, and going for his teammates. This is why like someone like Tracer is actually good against Far Mercy, right? Not because she can directly deal with Far Mercy, but she can utilize the fact that the Mercy is stuck onto the Pharah, who is also not with her team, and go for a much easier kill on the second support, right? Because there's much less peel for that support. And you're kind of abusing that, right? Similarly with the Echo and the Mercy. So that's a decision that we need to consciously make. We need to ask ourselves, do we just need to kill the soldier? Do we need to get him out and then kill him so now it's worth it and then go for something else? Or is he enough of a, not really much of a threat and more of just kind of a nuisance in the back line that we can afford to leave him back there and just, again, abuse the fact that he's not there to peel and just go for someone else? You can't half and half it. That's crazy. That's crazy. But we take those. Because he again ulted. Terrible ult. Your whole team was alive and he killed his whole team. So there was zero reason for him to ult there at all. So we take those. And by committing to fighting him there, even though you were not participating in the other fight whatsoever, again, this soldier is terrible. So you just force that ult out on top of that, right? Hey, that's 2 ults for 2 ults. We just need to not die. It's important when you blade. I don't know if she just straight up nanoed you there and you weren't expecting it, or if you called for it. But it's really important with blade in general to know who your target is going to be and commit to killing that target. You can't really afford to swap from target to target. If you hit a dash or get someone low, you need to go for that person immediately. Whoever you put your resources into is who you need to go on. Same thing as like there, like you might have tried to go for the Mercy, but you dashed through and got the Echo low. Now you need to switch the Echo because that's where you put your resources. Even if you decided to go for the Mercy, Echo's right there low, you put a slash into her and then go for the Mercy, right? But if you keep splitting up your resources half and half, where you go half for the Echo, then half for the Mercy, then try to go back for the Echo's going to be gone while you were on the Mercy. And when you try to go back for the Mercy, because Echo left or ulted or whatever, the Mercy's gone, right? Which again, you forced 2 ults for your 2 ults, so that's not terrible. Plus, you have Juno ult, which we should be, yeah, we should be good. I know there's the meme of like, oh, Genji saying I need healing, I need healing. Don't be afraid to say I need healing. If you're standing there waiting for heals, this is where you should say I need healing. Especially this Juno has shown that she's very unaware, because it is a tool. Don't be afraid to use it. What allows you to do, because even if you say I need healing in voice, she can know, okay, Genji needs healing, but she doesn't know where Genji is, right? If you're over there. So if you're in voice calming I need healing, you need to be like, hey, Juno on your right, I need healing, right? Genji needs healing, something like that, on your right. But if you just say that do the I need healing button, then it'll tell her on her screen where you are when you need healing. The problem for supports is when you're over here saying I need healing. Juno, where's my healing? Come on, dog. What the hell? And just, she's like over here like, what do you want me to do? You know what I mean? Because also if you're sitting there waiting for your supports to heal you, then you're not able to do what you want to do. You're just, again, you're basically dead for the entirety of the fight, or in the entirety of the time that you're waiting for her to heal you. Even in a position like this where there's downtime, there's not even a fight going on. You could be using this time to set up, to get info, to understand, to even like get a game plan of what you want to do next, right? Like, oh, Juno is coming up on ult soon, maybe. Like you know, if you've been tracking well enough, you're like, I think Juno's coming up on ult, so I should really try to focus Juno here. So then now you have the game plan and you're set up, then you go for Juno. But if you're down here for 8 minutes waiting for your support to heal you, then by the time they get back and you're just now also getting back, you don't have any of that, again, that precognition, that head start. You're just kind of having to react to what's happening on your screen. The pre-fight is where you spend time. Good kill. I say we should definitely try to kill them if they're isolated. If they want to go in and stagger themselves, that's perfect for us. We should exploit that. That soldier, dude. Oh my gosh. Be careful. But again, since we're in chaos right now, even though we're kind of like just right up inside of them with half HP, we're 1 HP right now, and we have 1 cooldown, we're living and we get a kill for it, right? Because we're in the middle of the chaos. So we're also benefiting from all of our teammates' abilities, right? If we have like AoE abilities and stuff. But also, the enemy can't really afford to deal with you because they are dealing with something else. Or if they do try to deal with you, then now your teammates are right there actively following up on your distraction, right? Even if it was just for a second, just 1 second for that Ram to turn around and, you know, hit you once and kill you. That might be just the difference to get him dead for your teammates, right? Obviously, it's not ideal to die, but if you put yourself in the right position and fight at the right times, then when you do die, more often than not, you're putting your team in a better position to win without you than if you are putting yourself in a really poor position before you even go into the engagement, right? And that can also mean timing as well. Your position itself could be perfect and, you know, flawless, right? But if you do it at the wrong time, then it's moot. It means nothing. Again, we're using our deflect as a way to combo on this Echo when we're not playing for the stickies. So when we flank, the longer we take to flank, the greedier the flank should be, right? The longer we take to flank, the more resources we're waiting out, the more resources the enemy team is using on the fight, right? The more attention and the bigger of a threat your teammates become, the more tunnel vision the enemy becomes, right? Means the later we wait to flank, the more we're trying to kill people. The more we're allowing our teammates to kind of be the bait while we go in from behind and utilize the chaos. But the sooner we go in, again, since no one's really there because it's so early, or you know, depending on how early it is, we are more and more of a threat. And if we're soon enough, we are bigger of a threat than our teammates. So then we become the distraction, and our teammates have to clean up, which is also fine. But you have to keep in mind the trade-off, right, is if you're the distraction, you can distract for a lot less time than your team can, but your team has better follow-up, right? As a team, they can do a lot more damage together, and the reverse is true, right? So like, if your team is a distraction, your team can distract for a lot longer and a lot more people, but you also do less damage. You have worse follow-up, right? Because you're only one person. So it's important to know which one you need more so at any given time. But generally, as a solo DPS, especially if you don't have a dive comp or anything, you really want to try it, especially on defense, you really want to let your teammates be the distraction 10 times more than normal, right? So that means you have to wait a lot. Even if you're in the right position, you just have to sit there and kind of wait, right? And just, even if the fight's breaking out, just, you know, if you want to wait later and later and later, again, gambling, the longer you wait, the more value you're going to get. Same thing with the tank philosophy. It's like, but if you wait too long, then it might not be there, and you might not get there in time or get the value in time to actually win the fight. You know, you might lose resources over time. So keep that in mind. That's also a great thing about mobility too, and Genji's mobility, is it allows you to take much greedier flanks faster and less time, which allows you to do those really greedy flanks in more situations that you couldn't before. And especially the better you set up and the more you set up, there it is again, the more you set up, the more, like, even more of an opportunity you give yourself to do as many things as you want, right? You give yourself more options in more scenarios, right? Oh my gosh, what are these visors? Now it's gonna get a fair amount harder on Genji here, just because the team can kind of just play a lot closer together, and it's a lot harder to be a distraction, as well as it's a lot harder to get kills in general. So I think going for the soldier is probably the best option. Just looking for those isolated picks is going to be your best opportunity, and finishing those people off like that was really good. See how you wall climbed? You didn't need to burn deflect to get up here, right? But if you'd burn deflect, then now you don't have it for that soldier. And I think that was mostly because you didn't have dash up to begin with, right? But you can still do that. Just because you have dash up doesn't mean you should necessarily use it to engage if you need to get vertical height or whatever. Nice. Again, if we're going to use our dash to engage that Echo, we need to just go for the kill. Our way of disengaging from that fight is by removing her from the fight, right? By sending her back to spawn, rather than try and run away. Especially if you get like the jump on her like that, you really should be investing all of your resources into killing her specifically, because you've already done you got such a head start on killing, like on doing damage, and like, cause you jumped her, right? Like you hit like your like 2, maybe 3 shurikens in the head, and then the dash, and then I think a melee on top of that, and then she you know, you jumped her, you startled her, right? So then now she's flying, she's 1 HP. You can afford to tank a lot more damage than she can, so you can kind of just allow her to hit you for free, because you can kind of go bar for bar together, because you're gonna win, right? You have more resources than she does, because you have more health than she does, right? So you can just focus on damaging her, because you know you can outdamage her before she can outdamage you, right? So by deflecting here, you are giving that damage away. Especially if you know every time you engage that Echo, you die by getting beamed through your deflect. It's really hard to fight someone like Mercy like that with Blade, because if you dash to engage her next, she's gonna fly away and you're not gonna be able to catch her, right? So if you end up engaging a soldier like this, okay, sure. Here, you don't need to dash to her. Just walk up to her and slash her, right? And then when she goes to Guardian Angel, you can walk a little bit and then dash to where she's Guardian Angeling, right? And then catch her, right? And then slash her as she comes to you, right? That's how you should engage anyone with an escape tool with Blade, right? A Moira. The way you engage a Moira with Blade is not by dashing in the air, pulling out Blade, and dashing to her, right? Because she's going to just fade away. What you do is you dash to her, then Blade on top of her, forcing her to fade, and then dashing to wherever she fades, right? It's the same thing with Mercy and her Guardian Angel. You pop it on top of her, or if you popped on someone else, whatever, you try to get to her without dashing, and then you dash to wherever she tries to go. If you can't get to her without dashing, then you need to go for someone else, right? Instead, try to instead of dashing to this Mercy when you know she's gonna dash over a Guardian Angel over there, just dash over here so she doesn't have the ability to Guardian Angel, right? She might just get scared enough and she might just Guardian Angel anyway, right? But instead, you should just go for these people, right? Go for these people, and then she can live if she wants, or again, if she makes that mistake by Guardian Angel out of reflex, thinking you're gonna go for her, then she's right there on top of it too, and you get another kill, right? And we ignore that Kiri because we tunnel vision a little bit too much on that Mercy when we couldn't hit her. And they have 3 ults. That was a great pick on the Echo, but she might get rezzed with Valk. We definitely should have saved that Deadeye for the Valk to stop that res, but whatever. This is a great cutoff for that soldier. We burned Deflect way too early. Nice kill though. So with Deflect, if you're going to engage like this, right, you're engaging by jumping them, by surprising them, right? Which is why you don't want to be just immediately just deflecting, right? Because you're on full HP. Even if he hits a Helix Rocket here, it's not going to mean too much. But like you can sit here and hit him a bit more, allow him to get his bearings. Because again, by jumping him, you are making him really uncomfortable, which means he's going to have to take a second to react to what's happening, because you engaged him really well, because he wasn't expecting you. But if you engage poorly and he's expecting you, then you have a lot less time to fight him before you have to whip out Deflect, right? So you can get at least 2, or you can even maybe tank another shot if you want or whatever, and then whip out the Deflect. But you've basically thrown all your cards out here immediately before he's even used them, just because he has them. You know what I mean? You haven't even you should force him to make that play, right? Don't expect him to make that play. Force him to make that play. Because if you react as if he's going to make that play every time, he never has to, right? And he might make that play. You might go for this and you might get a little too greedy and he might hit you and kill you for it, right? But at least you forced him to do that. You didn't give him that respect. You forced him to take that respect from you, right? And if you use a Deflect properly, then even if you don't kill him here, you force a lot of resources out, and you can now that you've taken a helix rocket, whatever, and you're half HP. Now you can deflect and back off, get healed from your teammates, right? And then you might be able to, now that he doesn't have resources either, wall climb back up and then fight him again, maybe, right? Or maybe he pops visor, and then now he doesn't have anything on top of his visor. He doesn't have helix rocket. He doesn't have his healing field, and he's a lot easier for maybe your cast to duel, right? Something of that nature. Oops. That was still a really good kill. Especially knowing, keep in mind, you know the soldier's coming up here, and you know he wants to visor. So then he's going to be even extra tunnel vision on that mission, that by just being up here, you're much more of a nuisance because he has a goal that he wants, and you're getting in the way of that. So at first, he's going to be hesitant to shift off course to deal with you, so then he can now visor, because he wants to visor right now. And again, even just by stalling him, by keeping him from visoring, even if he is respecting you, you're giving your team more time to fight without having to worry about visor. You know what I mean? It's okay. I still got the kill. Oh. I assume they win here. Yeah. I mean, Doom really also isn't the pick, to be fair. But what can you do? I mean, all in all, really not a terrible game. Yeah, it really just is about shifting your mentality on what you're trying, what your goal is. You gotta remember, your goal isn't to get kills, right? Even though you're like an assassin flanker or whatever, your ultimate goal is to capture the objective, right? Or stall the objective, or whatever. You're playing for the objective. And it's just about how, with the tools that you have, what is the most efficient way about going about that, right? And so that getting the kill, or, you know, killing people isn't necessarily always the answer, right? And I'm not saying you should never be trying to go for kills or anything. But if you can try to think about who you're engaging and whether or not you can even kill them, and use that to better inform your engagements, so you know what your plan is, even like what you're even trying to get out of that engagement, right? And especially if you're by not necessarily trying to kill everybody you're engaging, it allows you to engage more people, right? Like Juno, for example, maybe you don't feel like you have the mechanics to kill a Juno, right? But you don't need the mechanics to kill a Juno to threaten a Juno, right? So normally in a game where you may not feel comfortable engaging a Juno, if you know going into it you're not trying to kill her, you're just trying to force her attention, to force more attention from other people, to force resources away from their tank so that our tank can walk up and take that duel, then now you're able to engage her, right? Even though you're not killing her. And so that will open up way more options to you than before. So yeah, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. And yeah, good luck.